Some of the largest slave traders in America made a lot of money. They were doing business like no one else. And these happened to be Isaac Franklin and John Armfield, who ran the largest slave trade office on Duke Street in Alexandria, Virginia, where my fourth great grandmother, Rachel Daggs, was held captive. Peace and blessings, beloved. I'm your sis, Aisha Abdul Rahman. Welcome back to my channel. I'm an archivist, I'm a genealogist, and I'm a heritage traveler. Here on my channel, I share a lot about my journey of reconnecting with my roots here in the US, as well as West Africa, as well as behind the scenes of what it's like as an independent information professional with both my for-profit business, Legacy Planning and Preservation, and my non-profit business, Legacy Builders and Empowerment Inc. So I have been reading, I actually just finished reading a book called Ledger and the Chain. So Ledger and the Chain is a book about how the domestic slave trade shaped America and how some of the largest slave traders in America made a lot of money. They were doing business like no one else. And these happened to be Isaac Franklin and John Armfield, who ran the largest slave trade office on Duke Street in Alexandria, Virginia, where my fourth great grandmother, Rachel Daggs, was held captive. So this book, written by Joshua Rothman, goes into detail based on archival records and sources and other books that he did research on, learning about the business that these guys ran. And so the thing that I have learned is that I've gotten to a point with my own personal genealogy research is where you're going to get to a brick wall. You're not going to find any more census records. You're not going to find any more, you're not going to find wills. You're not going to find birth records or marriage records on our ancestors. And people will tell you, this is why we can't do genealogy. You're going to get stuck. We don't know because we were enslaved. That's not true. What you need to do next is you need to do research and even sometimes the genealogy of those who enslaved us. You need to find slave manifests. You need to find ship records because this was a business. It wasn't, they didn't see us as people. We weren't human to them. This wasn't personal, if I could call it that. This was a business. So you need to find out the business side of things. And so that is where I'm at in my journey is I am no longer really looking for census records and things like that. Now I'm looking for business documents. I'm looking for business records. So with Rachel Daggs, I also did a trip to New Orleans. She was, I believe and then this is where a lot of kind of puzzle pieces come together, is I believe she was from Stafford County, Virginia, got purchased, brought to Alexandria, Virginia, and then shipped to New Orleans. And I believe that based on what I've learned from Ledger and the Chain, because you have to be familiar with the history of the time, what was going on in the time period and the environment of where your ancestors were. It's not enough to just know about them and their life. You have to know the history and the context of the situation. You need to put yourself in their shoes and imagine the life that they were living. So in this book, Ledger and the Chain, Joshua takes you through that. He goes into detail looking at archival resources about what the business of these guys was like, what their methods of marketing was, how they enslaved people, how they found people, how they had agents working for them to help them grow the business, how they were the first people to build ships and to actually traffic people from state to state to state. And it goes deep into various details of records based on archival records. And then what I'm doing now is, now that I've read the book, is now I'm going back and I'm looking in the footnotes and I'm looking at where this information was sourced. So then that I can then take those, I kind of look at this as a puzzle. I can then take those puzzle pieces and put together for my own research. I can see, where did Joshua get his information from? What are the other books he read? Where are the archives that he went? So he went to North Carolina. Where is he sourcing his information? That is going to help me to then do my own research. What I have found is it's a really great book. I kind of cheated because I'm multitasking. I listened to it, for the most part. And then there are parts of it that I read for myself. So I feel like I listened to it audio on an audio format, and now I'm going and reading parts of it and looking at the footnotes. Um, it's a really great book if you're interested in the slave trade as a business, um, for your own, or you're like, maybe you're a historian and you want to know about the largest slave trade in the world. And, you know, people talk about the transatlantic slave trade, which was basically bringing us from different countries in Africa to the US. But then once we got here, there was still domestic slave trade going on. They're calling it the coastal slave trade.
Thank y'all both so much for coming to the Freedom House Museum. It's actually called the Freedom House Museum out of honor of those who actually were trafficked right here in this space we're actually in. It was named Freedom House by the actual Urban League of Northern Virginia, so a black organization named this space. They're the ones who founded it and started it. So I'd like to give that information. Because we of course know this space did not have anything to do with freedom when it was actually in use. We're standing in what was the largest domestic slave trading firm in the United States between the years of 1828 and 1836. This was actually a domestic slave trading firm all the way up until 1860. Well, we focus on those 8 years, 1828 to 1836, because it was the largest, the most profitable in the United States in that time, right? Owned and operated by Isaac Franklin and John Armfield. By the end of their time here, they were responsible for trafficking no less than 8,500 enslaved people. Trafficking from Alexandria down to Natchez, Mississippi, and New Orleans, Louisiana, right? And so the way in which it worked, Armfield was actually at this location managing the Upper South affairs. We are technically in the Upper South, DC, Maryland, Virginia, technically Upper South. So Armfield was here actually at this location managing those affairs. And when I say that, I mean responsible for overlooking all of the agents that worked for them, because the agents that worked for them will go to different cities and towns in the Upper South and purchase enslaved people, right? They go to Baltimore, they go to Annapolis, they go around Alexandria at the time of part of DC, purchase enslaved people already here and bring them right here, right where we are. Now, this is more the business section, and of course, he also lived here in this section as well. Unfortunately, the enslaved folks, right, the captured people were actually on either sides of these two walls here. There used to be two open-air pens that extended nearly to the ends of the block. One side for men, the other side for women and children. And unfortunately, they were held in this space until it was time to do that trafficking to the lower South, the deep South. And we know that to be the case, right, because we have archaeological evidence, but we also have picture evidence as well.
At one point, it's illegal. You can't bring Africans over to the US anymore. It's illegal. And they use this kind of like, a lot of it, funny enough, had to do with the church. The Catholics were like, oh, this is not humane. This is not, God wouldn't want this. But you can still have slaves. You just can't bring them from Africa anymore. And what's interesting is you learn through research is that there were also indentured servants that were of other ethnicities. You had Native Americans, you had European people that worked along enslaved people, except these people were getting paid or they were working off a debt. Whereas us, we didn't have a choice. We weren't getting paid. And so in the book, it just talks about these details. And I think that if you're a historian or you're doing your family research, it's going to be a very insightful book. Even if John Armfield and Isaac Franklin didn't traffic your family, they ran their business kind of like an MLM, a multi-level marketing, or like a real estate agent is. They had their office on Duke Street, and then they had agents work for them. So they would have like, I believe on one of the manifests for Rachel Daggs is a guy named Theophilus Freedman, and he's actually known for kidnapping and or having to do with the kidnap of Solomon Northup, 12 years a slave. These are the same people that kidnapped him, that enslaved my fourth great grandmother. They were known to be the biggest slave traders ever in this country. So he was an agent for them. So he would get people, buy people, sell them to them, and then they would resell them to different people. So from what I believe my research shows me is my ancestors, some of them were sold and some of them stayed here. So some of them were here in Virginia, and then some of them were shipped to New Orleans. And some of them even were sold to a guy that was the mayor of not New Orleans. I forget the name of the parish. He was a mayor there in Louisiana. So you get these details and you get people's names like Rice Ballard, John Armfield, Isaac Franklin, Theophilus Freedman. You get the details of not only how they did business, but how they worked together, who they worked with, who were the agents that they bought slaves from, but how did they go about it? What newspapers did they put sales ads in? They were like, oh, I'm willing to buy free, I'm looking for boys or girls or children ages this that look like that. I'm willing to buy them cash. So you're able to see where they marketed their business, how they marketed business, how did they come? Because that was my question, is how did they even end up with Rachel? Is it connected to Georgetown? Did Georgetown sell Rachel? Did they have Rachel at one time and sold them? So that is where I have been so far, is how did Rachel even become property of John Armfield in the first place? And this book really helped me to figure that out, because I got to see where they would go, the lengths they would go. They would get people from other states, bring them into Virginia, and then send them to Mississippi or send them to Louisiana. And that's how they ran their business. So you get to see the very details of where they went, where they got people from, how they did business, how they did their marketing. And then the other details is there's details about how, the office here in Alexandria, Virginia, it's known because it's called Freedom House Museum now. But some lesser known places, unless you live in Louisiana, is what I found is one of the office of Isaac Franklin. He has this really known office on, it starts with the E. I can't remember the name. So he had an office there, but he also had an office in Louisiana right on the water near the French Market, which happened to be where I was sitting when I was there. I just didn't know it at the time. And so now I'm looking for old maps to see, and I don't think there's probably maps back then. There was no photography back then, to see what did it look like at that time. Because what happened is when Rachel was shipped there, she would come in port right there where his office is, where the water is, which is now where they have that big fancy boat where you can go on a dinner cruise. That's what's there. That's what's there now. And the train, it's off of Canal Street. I think it's called St. Louis Street. That is where Isaac Franklin's office was. But I didn't know that until I read this book. He talks about where his office was. So now when I do my heritage travel and I go and I travel and I'm trying to get an idea of Rachel's life and how she was trafficked and where she may have ended up, I have to follow the business records of those who enslaved her. It was a business deal. It's like Burna Boy says, Nigeria was a business deal. This was business for these people. This is how, they made money. So this is a really great book. I want to share other content like this, and the books that I'm reading. So I really love to read and do research. And I think that this is the type of content that I'm going to be sharing in Legacy Lab. This is going to be an example of the exclusive content that I'm only going to have in the lab, is little details like this, sharing the books, sharing the book reviews. I'm not sure exactly yet, but I think this is the type of stuff I might want to share in lab. I don't want to gatekeep. That's my only thing, is I feel like I want everyone to have this information, but there has to be a way for me to make Legacy Lab exclusive. There has to be a way for me to make you guys join and make it worth the money, because it's not always going to be free. It's free now because I'm figuring it out, but it's going to be a subscription. I'm an information professional. I'm an independent information professional. This is the work that I do. This is business. So for me, it's my passion. I love it, but it's also a business, and I need to generate income. I need to make a living. So you can leave a comment below. What would you be what type of content, what type of information would you be willing to pay for a African American genealogy community? A place to come and get knowledge and share resources and information with others like yourselves that are doing this work. I know I would be willing to join a community like that. It's something that I wish was always there. There's Facebook groups and things like that, but they're not just us. They're with other people. So I don't know. Leave a comment below and let me know, what would you like to see in your community? What would you like to see in Legacy Lab? What types of resources, what type of information, and how much would you be willing to pay for it? Right now it's free as I work on it and as I get members. So I'm gonna actually leave a link in the description for you to join. And eventually you're gonna have to pay for it. Right now, the only way that people have been able to access it was from my book. So you had to have purchased my book, and in my book is a QR code. And when you scan that QR code, it lets you join the community for free. But I'm gonna go ahead and post the link in the description below to join Legacy Lab. And please do me a favor as a way to pay me back for letting you in the community for free. Leave a comment and give me some feedback. What do you think about having a community like this? What would you like to see in there? Yeah, that's it. Life is good. Have a blessed day.